you ever look around and feel like you're stuck in a dark room where nothing interesting happens? It can be hard to come home after a trip abroad. Everything feels uninteresting. You are not quite sure where to go, where to turn your camera to. You feel like you have been everywhere already. Search all the corners, but there's nothing else to shoot. It's a time like this when you ask yourself, why am I doing this? What is the point? Am I just a tourist with a camera? Or is there more to this? Is boredom a good sign? Or I'm just forgetting what the real goal is? To search for that real moment. So I begin to remind myself that a place is just a background, an empty stage. And that what I'm really looking for is the theater that is played there. I should be able to define my sandbox, make sure there's plenty of people there, and work to find the beauty in it. Alex Factory is a famous little art district in Lisbon. It's one of the main tourist hotspots in town. You get people from everywhere. The site was an old industrial hub until a recent transformation. Many different manufacturers were housed here since the 19th century. The philosophy is to embrace and celebrate their legacy, while at the same time bringing it to the present, resulting in an extravagant mix of influences. I start the day fishing in the busy street of the restaurant strip. Getting used to people's movement, to the constant flow in all directions, until I manage to spot someone worth chasing, and I wait in the right place. There are many kinds of shops here, and they are all trying to be original. There are quirky gift shops, fusion restaurants, home stores, and a bookshop. That is also more than just a bookshop. It's housed in an old printing factory. It has a music section, reading spaces, and art exhibitions. It's one of the main attractions here on the street. And on the other side, you can enter the main building, a little mall with different kinds of businesses. There's a shades shop, vintage clothes, curiosities, and a thriving tattoo shop that with its little open space seems to invite a bit of window shopping. There is plenty to see, every corner complete with some bold contrast. On the other side of the building, it's more calm. It feels a bit like the back alley. There is this interesting light beam shooting in front of the door, so I try to fish someone as people pass by. But I didn't get anything good. So I go up to visit inside the building. The rooms here are also used as an office space, but it still feels underground enough. Like on the outside area, the idea of what it means to be old and new has an unusual meaning here. And the whole atmosphere keeps sliding into the surreal. There's a bar under the staircase. The 24 is able to capture this dynamic space quite well. I go up to explore the upper floors. It's a mix of shops, graffitied walls, offices, co-work space, a cool fire escape. It's a building full of character, but I didn't get any pictures. There is a good view at the top. The sun is starting to go down, and as it brings that perfect magic hour beam of light, I return to this wall to try something different and compose a more layered image. An interesting scene after a bit of waiting. I find layered images to be a sort of patience game these days. You find your potential scene, and you concentrate on staying in the moment. Besides that, it seems to be important to decide well on your perspective. Sometimes, the first position you have on a subject is not necessarily the best one for the final shot. Trying different angles seems to be a fruitful exercise. Things often seem to change when you look at them from another point of view, as you cannot just rely on lucky moments falling on your lap. The 50mm is perhaps the focal length I have been using the most recently, so I bring it to the second day, where the exercise really begins. Coming here again, the expectations of discovering new scenes seem to suddenly leave me. I begin to slow down. I have to look again, trying to find what wasn't obvious at first glance, what I didn't spend enough time on. But it's not an easy task at first. I walk the main street up and down, trying to find new scenes, but nothing seems to feel right. There's something missing. And it's then I remember to look for a moment when it might be right under my nose. And even though it's not extraordinary, that little moment is all I need to get going. The street gets busy with deliveries, so I go inside again to patrol the same places of the day before, in case something interesting might be happening, like a cook taking a needed break in a back corridor. I decide on a framing and wait to see what happens. The decision to come back starts to give its rewards. And suddenly, I begin to expect once again that something new might be waiting around the corner. And I get excited at the idea of exploring the area again. I cross to the other side of the building to revisit the light beam shooting in front of the door. The 50 allows for a more direct perspective, and fishing here very close to the door creates interesting possibilities. This is a location you can keep reworking. I moved back a bit to try and compose several layers. The potential is there, but this one comes a bit short. That was a good example of why this lens can be very versatile. I go up the main building, thinking there is still a lot of potential here, with all these colors and textures. I go up one floor to see what I can find this time, looking inside shops, trying to work out new frames, and ending up with a pleasant surprise. This scene feels more interesting here with someone sitting down. So I keep going, to visit this other fire escape alley again, and ending up with this image after a little patience. True lucky strikes in an otherwise empty area. I peek inside the offices and roam the corridors at the far end. You can tell there is not a lot of people coming here. Surfaces brutally covered with graffiti. It's a strangely beautiful sight. I go down to visit the weekend street market. I start reflecting on how much it made a difference to come back already. To exercise persistency and positivity, and let go of that idea in my head that a failed shot is a doomed attempt. I keep searching somewhere else and circle around to the entrance area as I notice a new element in this scene. I wait. I wonder how many images I will have on this wall. It proves that a place can always feel fresh with a new event. That the reality is you never know what's going to show up next. And as the world has a way of surprising you, the main job is to be ready for those moments and try to make the most out of them. Besides, sometimes what I have thought to be my final perspective on something turned out to be only a stage in the long run. Another couch nap. But there's a bit more potential this time. Anything can feel definitive if we let it. And I come out again to try and enjoy that last light hitting the street. Until someone comes into the scene. The patience paid off in the end. But I start to feel I have plenty of shots from this area. The nighttime mood seems to be creeping in. So I go back to the market side. There seems to be a bit more action here. I explore the scene from different angles, starting out with this wide perspective over the party. There's some interesting elements here, but perhaps too many subjects in the frame. So I move closer into the action, observing from the outside. And I make a couple of quick passes at the tables. I change the target, This whole scene was quite good. But something else caught my attention. On the back, there's some kind of work happening on the big warehouse. I find the scale of the bridge against the men's to be interesting. I follow their movement to the door. That group under the light at the back creates an interesting dynamic. The afternoon light is beginning to wane. I go up again, still hopeful to find something new yet inside this mad-looking building. The empty stores are quite beautiful to study through the windows. The mannequins remind me of a Blade Runner scene. And the whole space seems to be out of a sci-fi movie. I waited to see if someone might come out. And after a while I got lucky. I managed to follow him. It's hard not to wonder a bit at those walls. I go up another floor. This bubble window corridor is pretty interesting. But my subject was near the escalators. Too much light can work well sometimes. I was feeling happy with how the challenge had turned out. And I was surprised myself on how successful this first return had been. I was thinking of leaving now. And as I thought on how I had felt at the beginning of the day, I realized I had developed a newfound interest in peeking into scenes I had visited before. And I thought, was I just lucky this time? An 80mm focal length is in itself almost like a new world in a small area like this. Even though you can still capture scenes with the right angle, it feels much more often like having a sort of microscope with you, as you're easily able to isolate subjects and details. But as I started the day, I felt the compression effect a bit overwhelming here. I took a step back and put a bit more thought into what I was framing, and tested the lens against the brick wall again. The close-up perspective creates a different sort of image. I kept testing out the possibilities and looked for subjects, trying to capture as much of a moment as I could. This really made the whole exercise fun from the start. This is 24mm and this is 85. A clear example of the difference. I had more reach today. I tried to fish in the crowd for a bit, but I found it's not so easy to do this with this lens. There is too much compression to try and compose clean shots. So I try to focus on what it does well, to flatten subjects against textures. This is a shot I could not have gotten before. Then I turned to these open windows. They were quite interesting. And now I could capture them well. Which made me look at the light hitting these restaurant tables and play around with the shadow it created. This time I wasn't feeling bored at all at being here again. I was more excited to come back to some locations now, like to this light beam over the door, to see what else I could get away with. I kept walking around, trying to find unexpected moments, and I noticed a little scene I had not really paid attention to before. these old and decaying escalators. I think it's their black color and texture, together with that bluish fluorescent light above, that give them such an interesting character. I take the cue and go up. There's not much happening inside. But I return to the bubble corridor to try once again. And I get one final reward. It wasn't luck in the end. The third time proved the point. The challenge comes to an end. Coming back turned out to be a good idea. It's an experience that I hope can work to remind me that the best part of an image is not the place where it's set, but the moment it records. Maybe in the back of our minds we always know, though we have not even begun scratching the surfaces of our surroundings. A realization that can change a whole approach to street photography and open new horizons when there seemed to be a void.